Alpha Protocol, developed by Obsidian Entertainment, published by Sega and released in 2010, is an all-around delightful video game. It's a choices matter RPG where the gameplay mostly takes the form of a third-person shooter. An interesting choice, probably reflecting the gaming climate of the time it was made. In it, you play as Special Agent Mike Thorton, a man who has been recently recruited and soon to be burned by super-secret American spy agency Alpha Protocol. When this game came out, it got so royally panned by critics that I never even considered giving it a go. It looked generic and, from what I understood, played like shit. Boy, was I wrong. Yeah, the game has a little bit of clunk to it. The cover never works the way it should, and the shooting mechanics feel more like the original Deus Ex than the Gears of War vibes that it feels they're going for. Oh, so what? I loved the original Deus Ex. The game also deserves a lot of credit for doing something different and being a current-day RPG, which, to this day, is not something we see very often. It's sad how much of a bum deal this game got during its release. It's filled with great characters, fun scenarios, and a staggering amount of variation on how the story articulates. Combined with the bite-sized runtime, makes for a truly satisfying and replayable game. It also makes it a very easy game to recommend, as I don't feel like we get small RPGs like this that often. I can see why people may have been mad when it came out. The value for money discourse started heating up at this time, and this game is short. I spent around 145 hours in New Vegas completing it twice, whereas here it took me 24 hours to beat Alpha Protocol twice. The game opens up with a cutscene, giving us the inciting incident of the game. A passenger airliner being shot down over Saudi Arabia by terrorists. Horrifying on its own, but the real kicker is that it was an experimental American-made missile that was used. We then cut to our hero Michael Thornton, waking up dazed and confused on an operating table. He gets a call on a PDA telling him guards are on their way, and he's got to figure out a way out of there. After some light tutorializing, we get to escape the operating room, where it's revealed to us that this was an initiation rite put upon new members of Alpha Protocol.
Alright, Mike, that's enough.
That's enough? I think that's my line. What the hell's going on? Why did you drug me?
We need to keep the location of this facility confidential, especially if you get kidnapped.
As I mentioned, Alpha Protocol is a super-secret spy organization which specializes in deniable ops. They're so secret that they are unknown to pretty much every other government organization. So secret that no one knows they exist. The term Alpha Protocol is confusing, as it is both the name of the organization and the term used to describe rogue agents. See, if they're ever caught red-handed, they simply say the agent has gone Alpha Protocol, and then they are absolved. The agent is working on their own volition and no longer under the umbrella of the US government. Anyway, Mike is then shipped off to Saudi Arabia to assassinate the leader of the terrorist organization. When you catch up to the target, regardless of whether you eliminate him or let him go, you'll be struck by another familiar American-made missile. From this point on, Mike is an agent of Alpha Protocol that has gone Alpha Protocol. This is a huge problem for Alpha Protocol, as this has set Michael Thornton on his mission to get his life back and to reveal the diabolical puppeteering of the US military-industrial complex. This game is interesting in that there isn't much of a story, at least to me. You're uncovering webs of lies and conspiracy to which you already know the end point of. There are a couple of twists and reveals, but the end goal is clear from the beginning: to expose the greedy weapons manufacturer. What Alpha Protocol is more about and excels at is creating a believable world with interesting characters. The game is set contemporaneously of the time it was released, which, similar to something like Deus Ex, weaves in real-life stuff with the fiction to make a really interesting setting not often seen, let alone in RPGs. There aren't a lot of games that I play where I can remember the characters' names or personalities, even immediately after beating them, but I can safely say that damn well every character of Alpha Protocol sticks in my mind. From the scene stealing Stephen Heck to the one-scene carrier character champion chick, there is some great writing here. Maybe because it's not a huge cast to begin with, or the fact that every character gets several paragraphs of dossier information, but I always found it easy to know who was who and why they were talking to me. Alpha Protocol, unlike a lot of RPGs today, is neither open world nor act-based. The missions themselves are rather linear, but the order you take them in will change things about the story in fun, unexpected ways. In the game, you travel to different safe houses which serve as your hub. From these safe houses, you can check your emails, buy and outfit new equipment, watch the news broadcast chronicling your adventure, and admire trinkets you gather as the game progresses. While the missions themselves are linear, there are several different articulations the game will account for. Did you sneak past or go loud? Did you execute the dictator or let him live? Do you blow up the weapons cache, ensuring safety in the region, or do you send them to a shady contact for funds to fuel your mission? While on your first playthrough you might not notice, Alpha Protocol is keeping track of a shit ton of details that will often be reflected back at you in one way or another. At the end of every mission you'll get your stats back. You know, stuff like how many alarms you set off or how many orphans you left behind. I'm not kidding. The game actually tracks your orphan count, which in turn is determined by what region you did the killing in. Kill someone in Taipei, you only leave one orphan. Kill someone in Russia, you'll leave several. Kill a government agent and leave none, as people in that line of work tend not to have kids. It's a little detail, but it's a testament to the kind of game Alpha Protocol is trying to be. More interestingly than that is the recap you get of your mission. A lot of the text is set in stone. It was going to happen no matter what. But the in-between these included the different articulation points of the mission, hinting to the player that perhaps the way you concluded the mission may not have been the only way. Playing this game can feel pretty linear, so it's great to have this feature to dispel that myth. It's always cool having unmarked choices in a game that aren't conveyed just through the dialogue, and this one's full of them. A huge selling point of Alpha Protocol is its conversation system. You're not running around exploring levels and chatting up NPCs in this game, but you do quite a bit of talking with them. Sometimes in person, but mostly over remote communication. See, you're playing as Michael Thorton, not a blank slate character, and one of the things you're told definitively about Mike is that he was recruited into Alpha Protocol not for his talents out on the field, but for his ability to read and manipulate others. This had such a cool layer to the dialogue wheel we all know and love from Mass Effect, because it adds a new way to roleplay. Personally, when I play Choice Matters RPGs for the first time, I usually just make the choices I would make personally. The second playthrough I might focus on a particular alignment just to see all the content I can. In Alpha Protocol, there is another dimension of role-playing. Instead of being good or evil, or in Mike's case being a dick or a mega dick, you can change your stance at given points in the conversation. During conversations, rather than being showing exactly what Mike will say, you're given the choices on 3 stances: professional, aggressive, and suave. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this yet, but I know absolutely fuck all about spy fiction. What I do know is the stances are modelled after what are called the 3 JBs: Jason Bourne, Jack Bauer, and James Bond. I want to take a moment here to talk about Michael himself. For the most part, and seemingly regardless of how you play him, he's an all-around smug prick. Starting out, he kind of feels like a bland version of Renegade Commander Shepard. I didn't find him very likable, and that feeling wasn't helped by the kind of flat voice acting. That all changed about halfway through the game. I think it's because by that point you have a feel for what kind of things he'll say when you take the different stances. You don't feel so blindsided by his scathing sarcasm and instead accept it. Now that I'm a veteran of the game, Michael Thornton goes up for me as one of the all-time goats of video game protagonists. He's never as suave, professional, or as aggressive as the 3 JBs he's modelled after, but he's his own thing. He's also funny as fuck in a "did you really just say that" kind of way, and I wouldn't replace him for the world. While the game is extremely short by RPG standards, running at about 12 hours, it more than makes up for that in story variations. Whether someone loves or hates you can drastically change their role in the story, and it's really fun seeing them. On my second playthrough, I wanted to get as many people to hate me as possible, and rather than cutting me off from content, the game supplements it with scenes that I had no idea were possible. More often than not in RPGs, the evil route gets shafted with less content as there's less NPCs willing to interact with you, but that isn't the case here. That said, you can be a real goddamn bastard in this game, but there isn't really a good or evil. This is a contemporaneous spy thriller, and the lines between good and bad are blurred. The minute-to-minute gameplay of Alpha Protocol is probably the most panned part. I went back and read some release reviews, and this game got utterly reamed in most cases. I'm here to say, it's nowhere near as bad as anyone says. In fact, I find the gameplay to be pretty fun. I don't even find it to be that janky. I can see the complaints though. This game came after both Gears of War and Mass Effect 2, both of which have far superior cover systems. Does that make Alpha Protocol unfun to play? Hell no. But this does seem to be a case of a developer following a gameplay trend and not quite coming close to touching the games it's imitating. For the record, the cover system is pretty bad, but it never got in the way of my enjoyment. On normal, this isn't a particularly hard game and has plenty of checkpoints. Sometimes you'll stick to things you don't want to, or not stick to anything at all, but you get used to it and eventually it works predictably. It's a bit of a glaring flaw, but I'm not going to complain about something unless it hurts the game as a whole, and I don't think it does. Something that threw a lot of people off is the kind of old school way this game handles aiming. While expressed as a third-person shooter, this game is still an RPG, which means you'll need to play to your strengths. Attempting to use a weapon you're not trained in will usually result in your bullets going everywhere except for where you want them to go. It's kind of like in Morrowind, where you'd swing your sword at the enemy over and over, but its health would stay the same. This is fine to me, and it seems like a simple proposition. Don't use weapons you aren't investing points into. It's not like you're locked out of using your assault rifle if you've run out of pistol ammo, it just means you'll need to get lucky to make your shots. I beat this game once as a pistol expert and once as a melee-focused character. Even if I entered a mission under-equipped, I never had to restart one. On top of the shooting, you have special spy powers and gadgets at your disposal. Like most of the gameplay here, if you're familiar with Mass Effect, you'll be familiar here. You get powers as you level up your abilities, which are then accessed through a radial menu during gameplay. You've got stuff like slowing down time to line up shots, going into a melee frenzy, or my personal favourite, going completely invisible for a duration of time. It never fails to crack me up. Once you're invisible, you are then able to go around an area and perform stealth takedowns on enemies without them being alerted. I know what you're thinking, that's stupid as fuck and I agree, but hear me out. This is an espionage RPG that is trying to make you feel like a cinema spy. There are certain abstractions that must be made, and if you can accept that, you'll have a fun time. So what if I just power shouted, ran into gunfire, and kung fu'd the guards? I'm an espionage master. It makes sense to me. When I knock out all the guards in the room without them being alerted, I imagine I'm like the Predator. I imagine the guards thinking to themselves, "What the hell? Who took out George? Jerry, do you copy?" Causing mass confusion. The powers are abstract and eloquent, but they just manage to sell the fantasy to me. In terms of exploration, there isn't much to say. It's a linear game that generally never has more than 2 ways to go. In classic video game fashion, one is the critical path, and one will be a dead end with some resources. Money can be tight and upgrades can be expensive though, so it pays to explore the level a little bit. On top of money, you can unlock new information about the different characters and factions inhabiting this world. Sometimes this is just for flavor, sometimes it can be used in conversation for an advantage. There isn't any Elden Ring level shit here, but it was never too far out of my way to see what was in the room over there. There are boss battles in this game, and they're all a resounding meh from me. Most of the bosses have some cartoonish flavour to them that isn't found in the rest of the game, and whether or not that works for you is, well, up to you. As a whole though, these battles aren't too intrusive to the gameplay experience, and there aren't all that many of them. They aren't wildly different to fighting a regular enemy, they just have bigger health pools. When a game includes stuff like this, it's hard to know where I stand. Do the devs deserve credit for making them unintrusive, when really the ideal situation would have been to not have the fights in the first place? It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing, as RPGs traditionally have boss battles. Overall, it's not something I care that much about one way or another, but it's worth a discussion. Last but not least is the 3 mini-games that you'll be playing for the entirety of Alpha Protocol. One is hacking computers, one is hacking keypads, and one is hacking locks. I'm not going to describe these mini-games to you, but I'll say they're all actually pretty fun. Luckily, if you don't enjoy them personally, you can use your resources to purchase EMP grenades, which can instantly unlock any of the 3 mini-games with a button press. By the end of the second playthrough, I was making sure I always packed EMPs. There are only so many times you need to play the same minigame, and that's fine by me. Overall, I really enjoyed the gameplay loop of Alpha Protocol. It's just so refreshing to play a full-fledged RPG that doesn't require 50+ hour time commitment from the player to fully see the results of your player choice. Going from hub to mission, mission to hub, gives the game a satisfying rhythm. It's rare a mission goes for over 20 minutes, and better still, it's even rarer to be locked into 20 minutes of cutscenes either. The word that keeps going through my mind is bite-sized, but without any compromises to make it any less than a full game. Presentation-wise, an Alpha Protocol isn't anything special. That isn't to say anything is bad either. The game still looks great today, especially the characters. But it's from that drab Xbox 360 era where mission environments can feel blocky and samey. You go to some cool, standout areas like a party boat full of arcade machines or some Roman ruins, but there isn't really anything I'd call set piece. The voice acting is all around pretty good, with the standout being Nolan North doing a very un-Nolan North sounding performance as Stephen Heck. The supporting cast all did a great job in their own right too, contributing to what I talked about earlier with me actually remembering the characters. I found Michael Thornton's acting to be a bit all over the place, but that is most likely a result of him having to use different tones of voice for the different stances, at times making the dialogue sound disjointed. This wasn't a problem for me, as I loved Mike by the end. Sound effects are about what you'd expect for a game like this. People who followed my other reviews will know that I find presentation to be a hard thing to talk about because of how subjective it is. I'll just tell you if something really stands out as good or terrible, and in Alpha Protocol's case, it's neither. The same goes for the music. It's standard music. The only track I can remember is the song that played in Taipei, and the fact of the matter is, I don't remember how it goes, only that I remember noticing it as an earworm. During a boss battle, the song where Autograph's Turn Up the Radio plays was actually a really good fit for the fight. As some of you know, Alpha Protocol recently only came back on sale after being completely unavailable for several years. This song may have very well been the reason it was taken off stores, as I can't recall any other licensed music used in the game. Alpha Protocol is a game that was highly panned at release, but has been widely praised in the years since then, but I don't think the game ever fully recovered from the rocky release. It's the definition of a hidden gem, a game that you could go your whole life without playing and never truly know what you were missing out on. But don't let that happen to you. As a comparison, I think the closest game to this is the first Mass Effect, just with better shooting and without all the America fuck yeah-ness to it. It's an exciting and clever game that I had very little friction points while playing it. It ran great on my PC, and I didn't need any external patches to play or whatever. The GOG version is primed and ready to go. Most impressively, this game changed my outlook on the espionage/spy genre. To be honest, I was super bummed out when I heard IO Interactive were pivoting from Hitman to a Bond game. I just had no interest in the theme, and had no idea how they were going to convert me from a Hitman to a Bond fan. But after playing Alpha Protocol, I can see the path. If you're a fan of Obsidian, or just in RPGs in general, you owe it to yourself to give Alpha Protocol a go. Even if you can't see how a spy RPG would work, this game is a fantastic example of what a Choice Matters game can be. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.